Hi, Potemkin. Did you hear the news?
No, but did you hear mine? Hitler's dead.
You know what? Screw what I was gonna do. That's way funnier. That is way funnier. No. That's gonna be a talking point for today, buddy. That's nice, man. Let's get into it. Wild Assault disappearing is more than just a broken mechanic that was hard to balance going away. It's going to affect so much of the game with this tool missing. I think it's amazing that this tool has been wiped away from Stride, but we have to talk about what will be going with it. How much is going to be affected by this missing? Today's video, we'll plan on breaking that down. One of the biggest things going away with this Wild Assault is easy hit confirms into a wall break. As you know, every form of Wild Assault gets rid of a bit of burst, so if this is incorporated into a combo, it usually means that the combo is going to be really true and there's nothing you can do about it. That makes conversions insanely strong that utilize Orange Wild Assault, so for characters like Kai, Johnny, and of course Saul Bad Guy, they do really well with it. Tatuma is a shining example of how well Orange Wild Assault can look despite it being one of the worst Wild Assaults. Like, it can let you clutch out the win for a round that you wouldn't get without meter or any form of clean hit counter hit, and that's a pretty massive deal. The fact that small combos can get turned into massive cash outs with half a bar of burst and then getting a wall break to basically get that burst back, it's a bit of a toxic mechanic, and it was very hard to balance due to the fact that it's a finite resource. Burst isn't something you come across as often as you really think. Only with a wall break you'll see it as often as you do. Sometimes in games that doesn't happen, so at the best you're going to see burst maybe 3 times a match. Which doesn't sound like a small amount, but if you really think about it, it kinda is. 6 Wild Assaults an entire match. And then with wall breaks it becomes like 9 or 10. And it affects so damn much that it's able to turn these small situations into massive cash outs. So yeah, Orange just led to a very snowball situation, and the problem with Orange is that its counterplay is you had to block it or make it with. With some characters, it's possible to make it with. With others, it's basically impossible, and it was -2, meaning that it wasn't really like you blocked it, turn over. It's like you blocked it, and the opponent has small wiggle room to mess with your offense, and that's really unfair. But again, it utilizes burst, so it's like if you make it bad, they'll never use it, and they want you to use this tool. That's what they wanted until they got rid of it, which, hallelujah. Blue Wild Assault is a little different though. Blue Wild Assault is an amazing conversion tool, just like Orange, right? Except it was good for block strings. That's right, it was super plus, special cancelable, so for some characters they got all-time block string setups, like Potemkin could do Hammerfall Break for an all-time 50-50 Potemkin Buster on block. And on hit, it also works for an all-time 50-50 Confirm into Pop Buster. So yeah, you couldn't go wrong using this. If you used this, you just got a free 50-50 to do exactly what you wanted, and that was very powerful for a character like Potemkin, who has one of the strongest 50-50s in the game. Now, Blue Wild Assault going away is the biggest thing, because just like that, you've taken away Potemkin's toxic ability to turn any normal into a 50-50, because the only way to counter Blue Wild Assault is to throw it or backdash it. Throwing it requires you to be on it in terms of reaction time. It's in the reactable zone about 16 frames. However, that's like the cutoff point of reactable, right? Like 15 is what they say is humanly possible to react to. However, you're not doing that. People say that the average reaction time is 17 frames, so 16 is already ridiculous. However, in a fighting game, there's so much things that you need to pay attention to. Like Potemkin can do Hammerfall Break, he can do jump cancels, he can use roaming cancels, he can test your reactions with a Garuda, or any of the normals could just be a Potemkin Buster, which you can't react to. And that's the problem. There's already a ton of main games going on, and now we have this main game that allows him to just set up a free 50-50. So Blue, without a doubt, was the strongest, and the counterplay is to throw or backdash. However, this is the next thing I forgot to mention, you can slightly charge every Wild Assault. For Orange, this does nothing but better conversions on hit, and for Blue, it gives better conversions on hit. However, if you charge it, a teeny slight charge, you can beat a backdash every time. So the only counterplay is to throw it, and throw is super committal. Super committal. So if the opponent has learned how to Blue Wild Assault in a very conservative manner, you're not throwing it. He gets away with murder. That's the best way to put it. You're not going to react. Blue Wild Assault, with his minor amounts of counterplay, just allowed for way too much for some characters to do what they want, i.e. Potemkin, and potentially Chaos. He doesn't need it as much, but it does help him a ton. And of course, the most annoying one is disappearing. White Wild Assault. To think there was a time this used to be a guard crush and +6 on block is insane to me. White Wild Assault allowed characters like Bedman, Nagoriyuki, and Goldlewis to basically skip neutral and get a knockdown. And these are characters that just get to run their game plans with a knockdown. Don't get me wrong, most characters do that, but when it comes to a big body, you don't want to take on their pressure if they get a knockdown. When it comes to someone like Nagoriyuki, now you're stuck in 50-50 health, right? Now you're stuck into high damage situations. When it comes to Goldlewis, now you're stuck in a high damage situation where any behemoth can lead to 80% next to the wall. And of course with Bedman, he gets to set up his error follow-ups, and with the hard knockdowns, he gets to do that way easier. And then you see the problem. You've allowed a big body a very easy to access neutral skip that gives him a hard knockdown to do whatever game plan they do. Goldlewis sends out drone, and then he could take you to the corner if it was mid-screen. That's absurdly strong, and Goldlewis isn't even a contender in terms of the meta anymore. Goldlewis just a psycho. With that going, there's now this mindset, there's now this layer that's gone. You no longer have to stare at the opponent's burst and think to yourself, my goodness, when is he going to send the White Wild Assault? You just sit there and look at it and go like, oh, I just need to play against the character tools. I don't need to look at the system mechanics anymore, because the only way to counter White Wild Assault was to throw it on the approach. This one's a lot more reactable, and you can block it to make it punishable if you do an instant block, but again, this is really tough counterplay to do in the moment, right? So it's something that definitely needs checked, and it going away is going to get rid of this layer of like playing against these characters that you don't even think about anymore. You don't even think about an invincible approaching knockdown. Imagine a safe DP that led to a hard knockdown. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't have iframes frame 1, but it's like a neutral DP. It's the only way to put it. So you can see what disappears with all these assaults disappearing, right? The counterplay's gone, you don't need to think about that layer. Of course, the stronger characters that utilize these tools have been hit. Will there be compensation buffs for the characters that need it though? That's what I'm wondering. For example, Johnny of Orange Wild Assault disappearing genuinely needs buffs, without a doubt. Just like Saul with Orange Wild Assault disappearing, maybe not as much. Maybe not as much. Same with Kai, he doesn't need it as much. But we do know that a ton of characters are getting hurt by the fact that Wild Assault is disappearing. Potemkin being one of the biggest losers of Wild Assault disappearing is a massive thing as he's a top tier. Lucy getting heavily nerfed with Wild Assault disappearing is huge, because she kinda needed Blue Wild Assault, and she's not even a meta character. She's kinda crap, and that makes her way worse. So she does need compensation buffs. And we're not talking like a buff on the same level as Wild Assault. Wild Assault is a broken mechanic that needed to go. We just need something that can help out those characters a little bit, because when it came to balancing the characters during season 3 to 4, and this is the next point we're going to talk about, they were balancing the game with this mechanic in mind. When 4 was insane, keep that in mind, they were balancing the game with this mechanic in mind, and they gave Potemkin so goddamn much. Is that not an insane thing to think about? Something I want to get into. Season 3 to 4, these characters were balanced with Wild Assault in mind. That is how I think Season 4 characters are not that good in terms of the balance, because they're well aware they can't give these characters way too much, because Wild Assault would affect their toolkit way too much. And that's why a lot of the pressure some of these characters do either relied on Wild Assault or utilized Wild Assault in a way that was super useful to them. Johnny lacked conversions. Orange Wild Assault fixed that problem. Lucy lacks any ways to set up mix-ups. Blue Wild Assault fixed that problem. Abba isn't lacking anything. Wild Assault made her stronger. You kind of get what I mean. A lot of these characters were kind of balanced around Wild Assault being a concept that is in the game at this point. So when they were designing a lot of their tools, they had a lot of that in mind, where Season 1, 2 in the base roster didn't have any of this in mind. And that's why it's a bit of a scramble to see who in the base roster from Season 1 to 2 are so strong and so weak. It's very curious how that happened. The best way to showcase how much they were balanced in was definitely Johnny. Johnny, when he released, was kinda crap, but one of his saving graces was Orange Wild Assault. It fixed a ton of his problems, gave him plus frames to set up his high-low, and any combo you got, you could easily convert it because he had Orange Wild Assault. And this was Johnny when he released. He was kinda okay when he released, right? And Wild Assault was the main reason why he was even solid in the first place. When he became meta, what was everybody saying? Nerf Orange Wild Assault and nerf Johnny. When they nerfed both of those things, Johnny has not been represented at all in tournaments. Keishu, what I do is how I like saying that name, it's very fun. Drop Johnny altogether to play Eno. That should tell you everything you need to know about nerfing Wild Assault and Johnny, because it kind of made them abysmal. There's very few players that play Johnny right now. And you know what, that's a good thing, he's lame. But the point is, from character season 3 to 4, how will they be adjusted with Wild Assault disappearing? They have to do some compensation stuff. Not with Abba though, she needs toned down a wee bit. But they do need some compensation stuff. Their toolkit's really lacking without Wild Assault. What does Johnny do besides Mistfinder and Senga and cards? Like, that's everything. Wild Assault was almost like his 4th special. What does he do now? What does he do now besides Mistfinder? He doesn't do a whole lot. And the final point is this. I'm going to show you Arc World Tour footage to prove to you how much Wild Assault was needed for these players to even get their victories, get their confirms, or take a round, right? Because there was a ton of scenarios when watching where you go like, damn, Wild Assault did a lot, didn't it? To prove this is a very legendary player on the right, Tatuma playing Sol Bad Guy, and to prove this point, he uses a Wild Assault in this combo, which it doesn't seem like a big deal. You realise he gets a massive confirm off of it, and he lowered Jack's burst, and because he lowered the burst to such a low degree, Jack had to wait ages until he saw a full bar of burst. Despite taking this amount of damage, he would have seen burst very, very soon. Jack could have had the mind game to play for burst. Look at the point that it's at, right? Do you see the point that it's at? It is on 80%. It would have been about like 95 to 97%. Jack could have decided to play patient with his meter and back up and maybe play for a gold burst play. However, because of that Wild Assault, he couldn't do quite the play. That could have been a play that could have saved Jack, but that's no longer in the mind anymore. The best he could do is deflect or try to take a turn. And he went for the take the turn approach, and Tatuma bet him. You see how much this affected the round. Tatuma took so goddamn much with that one Wild Assault combo. So here's another big example, and the first set Tatuma players played versus Nitro, and this is one of my favourite sets by the way. I thought this was amazing. He challenges with a far slash into the vortex, however he couldn't get the wall or anything like that with the lack of meter, but the one thing that does allow for it is the Wild Assault, and that allowed Tatuma to steamroll. Look, he's already got positive bonus, he just needs to get one more hit, gets it with the Bandit Revolver, gets the pick up, right? And that was the entire game. Like, no offense to Tatuma, fantastic player, he's using his resources to the best that he can, but you're seeing how much is really giving him an advantage. Even here, look at this. Look at this. He wouldn't have got that combo without the Wild Assault there. He wouldn't have got this hard wall stack without the Wild Assault there. And it's really, really strong. And you need to keep in mind, this is the worst Wild Assault, right? This is the worst one. And it gave Tatuma so goddamn much. This is all to say that Wild Assault disappearing is a good and healthy thing for the game, but I want everybody to keep in mind what is changing alongside Wild Assault, right? There's some characters that are going to need to get some significant buffs with it gone, and there's some scenarios in game that are going to disappear. Again, the layers are going to disappear. You don't need to think about a white Wild Assault coming from a Gold Lewis and neutral when you've got a bar up. You don't need to think about Potemkin staggering offense with blue Wild Assault anymore, right? You don't need to think about these buttons getting turned into an instant 50-50. You don't even need to think about these high damage characters having an easy conversion tool to get to the wall anymore, right? That's all gone. And this is a good thing. It's got me very excited for 2.0 because it's a good balancing decision to get rid of this mechanic. It always has been since it ever released. But this video was just something to break down how much is going away with it. I want you to understand how much of the game is going to be affected with Wild Assault disappearing. So I hope my point is made. Hope you guys understood the video premise and enjoyed it. Be sure to like and sub, comment, all that stuff. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Looking forward to 2.0 or the next grabber odd. See ya.